So now I'm back to this one. Each layer is not covering up because what's the point of me putting the orange if I'm going to cover it up entirely with green? If you look at how objects work and how they reflect light, anything that's next to something else, if you have a really bright red shirt on and somebody's sitting next to you and the light's bouncing off of your shirt, then the person sitting next to you is going to get a little bit of a red glow to them. I'm gonna make this one red. I just added some yellow. This is still a little bit damp because I kind of want to talk through a little bit of the wet on wet kind of technique and if colors mix together and how that works. I'm gonna start out by putting some red here. So I am gonna add a little bit of water to kind of soften this as it goes. I can do that dragging out as my brush dries. I can get a little bit of that stripiness if I want to. And I'm kind of mixing the red and the yellow together. So these two colors are going to merge together a little bit. I can add the yellow back in with the red so that these two can kind of play around a little bit. Let it kind of come over here and add something a little bit more interesting over here. It's pretty puddly right there. So see how the red and the yellow have kind of come together a little bit. What if you want more red? What if you want a darker concentration of red? I think you know the answer to that. We can add that in. Once again, there is, remember, a limit to how much your paper can handle. Kind of be on the watch for if your paper is starting to deteriorate. So if I want to come back in with a little bit of a darker red again, I can definitely do that. We said how colors kind of bounce off each other. There's actually a little bit of red that's reflecting onto this. So right now, while it's wet, I know I've said I have to have really, really distinct edges. Can I let a little bit of red like kind of bounce over to here? I can, as long as I'm okay with that. I am gonna have to come back and define the edge. I'm planning on doing that with blue or purple. So if I want a little bit of that red to kind of travel through that, I could. Could I come back with a little bit of red when the edge is dry and just do what I did here and just paint the red on? Sure. But sometimes it is nice to have a little bit of unity between your objects. That's actually, like, you know, a technique that some of you guys may want to play around with. There is time and place for you to let your objects run together a little bit. But if you look closely, you can see the shine of where it's really, really wet. So remember, the shinier it is, it means it's pretty wet, and it means it's gonna be spreading. Now you guys can see my edge is gone. I'm gonna have to come back and get that. Can you also start to see, I have to stop. This paper has kind of had all it can. As you rework the paper and it's wet, so the paper starts deteriorating and like little bits of the paper kind of start coming up. If I were to keep going, the paper would actually start kind of falling apart. So this is an example of paper that's been pushed a little farther than it should. I have to just leave it be. So we'll move on to the next part after we've let this dry a little bit. So I mixed a little bit of yellow with that green to get kind of more of a Granny Smith kind of green. Hit a little bit of this area. You can still see the orange through it, not covering it up, but especially up here where, you know, we had a lot of white. Since this Granny Smith kind of green is so nice and bright yellow and it's still a super light color, I come in here, bouncing back a little bit more green. So now we're going to come in with our cool color. We've let this dry. I went through and brushed a little bit of red over some of the green to kind of balance it out so that there's a little bit of red over here as well. So there's a little bit of red, there's a little bit of red, there's a little bit of red. It's real subtle. I wanted to show you guys that you could do it this way. So now what I would do is brush back over maybe a little green over the red so that the red's kind of subtle underneath, and then I can do this kind of effect, this bright green or this dark green, and I kind of put that over it so that the red is underneath the green in terms of layering. Always have a test paper, because I just use whatever scraps, you know, around, so that way I can see how heavy is my purple amount. I'm kind of just brushing it over. It's real subtle and real soft amount. I'm not putting a ton of purple. Because remember, as I layer this with watercolor, the beauty of it is that I can see all those other colors. So I can still see a little bit of orange down here. I can still see a little bit of green down here. I can see a little hint of purple. This is a real kind of subtle approach to putting a little bit of cool color down here, which is going to help it look like it's rounding. That's a little bit more obvious of a shadow for you. to just kind of show you the difference. I would probably have stuck with the first one, just for me personally. You know, there's different techniques. I'm trying to show you guys like the different styles you can do in terms of layering or wet on wet, but you personally are gonna end up deciding a style that you like, that you're comfortable with. So as you layer on some of these other colors, you might want the purple to be super subtle, like I kind of had at the beginning, but this is definitely going to give you a lot more of a 3D approach. If you think there's too much purple going on, remember how we said to have paper handy nearby? As long as the water and the paint is wet, take a piece of paper, kind of do this, don't scrub it back and forth, just push lightly down on it and then lift it off. You do have to go back in and kind of touch it up, but that lifting off technique is really helpful for when we get to like a landscape and you're doing clouds and that sort of thing. On the apple with the red, I've lost my edge. It's a little harder to tell where one stops and where one begins. Turn my paper over. Since I'm working on this edge, I'm a little more comfortable working that direction. There's definitely a lot more depth. Same thing up here, same thing in here. It's got a good contrast. We talked about the 3D effect. This is much darker than the edge because I kept that white. If I put a little bit of purple in here, you can kind of see the difference from there to there. One part definitely looks deeper than the other. Be the same thing up here if I put the purple on this part. So you can see the difference between that and that. You can use whatever colors on your palette, except no white, no brown, and no black. Everything else. You can make these apples any color you want to, as long as it's somewhat of an apple-y color. But green, red, orangey, yellow, there's yellow apples for sure. So you're not gonna use purple or blue as the base color, but you're gonna be able to integrate any colors. If I wanted to use a little bit of this bright pink, I could definitely put that in. That would look great right here. A little bit of pink might even look good in here. Your goal is to make this kind of photo into a more interesting painting. Do a background if you want to, like we talked about the other day, and the shadows. I built up all these different layers. This one's a little bit of a dry brush approach where I kind of dragged it. So remember that you also can do this style. This is more of a wet on wet approach. If you want a little bit more of a realistic approach where you're seeing brush strokes as you paint, that's fine too. Watercolor has a lot of different techniques and a lot of different styles. So all of your apples are based on the same photo, but now you guys should be able to come up with apples that are your own in the style that you want to do. All right, that's it.